I know you're finishing your salads and you're anticipating what the next course is, but I think because we have so much to do together today, if you don't mind, I'll intrude a bit and we'll begin. So right now you can just finish eating and relax and learn, and then you're going to work really hard. So enjoy this eating break. Those of you who didn't hear John Mitchell's introduction, my name is Pamela Gordon, and I'm very happy to be here. We shared with John some of the insights from our executive think tank on supply chain. And he said, oh, would you please bring that to the executives here at IPC? So I'm delighted to be here. So it's a brief opportunity to sit on the supply chain. So this presentation starts out with lunch, but it goes much further. We're going to be talking about strategies and time frames that are further out than you would normally do in your average business day. But we're going to show why that this level of advanced forethought is critical not only to the future, but every single day you're in the office. We executives are not just managers. We are leaders. And this exercise we're going to do today is going to bring out the best of your leadership and the best of your ideas for your teams. So let's begin. I'd like to summarize the results of the 2 executive think tanks on supply chains we've done so far. We tend to hold them in the world's leading technology centers. So far in Silicon Valley, and as you see in this photo, near Tel Aviv. We bring executives together from all different aspects of the supply chain in order to tackle the 10 most difficult supply chain challenges there are in the world. Now, you may come up with 11 and 12, and that's fine, I encourage that. But after a lot of research, we've been in business since 1987, we've identified these 10 issues that cannot be solved by just one group. They have to be solved by a balanced team of looking at how do we get here, what are the complications, where do we want to go, and how do we get there. So many of you in the room today are mainly in the EMS and supplier categories. The OEMs are the top of the food chain, yes? So we really have a lot of effort with the OEMs all year round, and typically in a think tank, we have them right at the table with you. But I'm going to bring some insights to you from the OEM community. This is a little foreshadowing of what we're going to do once you're done with your eating. This is how the think tank works. We choose the topics. We have full body discussions on each one of the topics. We come together and we tackle topics such as conflict minerals and a whole host of them. And then we put it all together by the end of the day and have a little fun afterward. So we're going to get a taste of this. But first, raise your hand if you've heard of the term BHAG, Big, Hairy, Audacious Goals. I am so glad to see it's at least half, probably 2/3 of you. So this is a great tool, and we've used this tool at Technology Forecasters for years, and it's amazing. So it's from the Harvard Business Review, some academics who've written for them and have written a book about it. And what you do is you look ahead 10 years, at least, at what you think is where we should go, even if it's audacious and hairy, even if it's outrageous, right? Because once you have that idea of where we need to go to survive, to succeed, to thrive, then you move backwards. So that's what we're going to do. Here's a few suggestions. You know, when Winston Churchill said to the people of England that they needed to defeat the Nazis, he didn't just say, we need to protect our homeland. No. His quote is unbelievable. He talks about the future generations and the entire world. And of course, he was correct. So the BHAG term had not been invented in his time, but we would definitely associate it with that. Now let's look at some more recent examples. When I wrote Lean and Green, I interviewed 20 different companies around the world about what they were doing to reduce environmental impact and to profit from it. One of the companies was Texas Instruments. Has anyone here ever worked for Texas Instruments? You buy from TI, I'm sure. You supply to TI. Yes, exactly. So they really do quite a number of specific goal setting that are actually matched to the input-output of each chip in terms of water usage, electricity usage, waste, safety, et cetera. So I was quite impressed with them when I was doing my research. But at the end of the day, I said, is TI doing enough for sustainability, for the environment? They said no. When we do enough, they said, is when semiconductors are made of just sand and water. Then we'll have done enough. So that's a BHAG, and you say it's ridiculous. You need a lot more than sand and water. But the very next year, they eliminated 48 of the 50 most toxic chemicals in their entire operation and facilities in 1 year. So a BHAG can start amazing things in progress. How many of you read about the circuit board that will dissolve in water after use? So, yep, so you think about, you think about the e-waste solution of that. And they say, although I haven't tried it, that you can actually drink the water after this dissolving. So that's another idea that seems unfathomable. So now it's your turn. These are the 10 strategic issues for the long run. Now, I know some of you out there are saying, oh, all these issues, I solved them all, right? Raise your hand if you've, no, not yet? Okay, all right, well, maybe after lunch. No, these are serious issues. These are issues that are going to make or break our industry. So when we present these issues at a think tank, sometimes the executives say, there's more. So just here's one example from the group at the Israeli think tankers. What they added is the human factor, sustainability, executive buy-in, cradle to cradle, meaning treating end-of-life of product such that it can go into a new product, and the whole changing global economies. So there are elements of those in the above 10. This is the experience of the think tank executives after going through this exercise. In Silicon Valley, some of the executives talked about the process and programming to be conducive to creating truly innovative approaches and ideas. Some of them said, now I know what's plaguing the OEMs. You sit with them, you understand it. The level of conversation goes beyond cost and even strategy to focus on what are we doing in this industry? How does this industry align with our personal values and goals? So you'll see some tastes of that. The group in Tel Aviv liked it very much as well, and I think you'll like the last one. They said, yeah, we invented a machine where you insert a non-compliant part, and out comes the other end, it becomes compliant. So consider that a BHAG, but we had a lot of fun with that. But here's what pleasantly surprised the TFI team. There's a willingness to embrace innovative thinking that goes beyond what people say is possible. So you can see the executive said, we're not interested in talking about what's always been done with a 1% to 2% improvement. We're interested in radical change. They said, maybe educating consumers away from planned obsolescence is the way to go. They said, this is really funny, the last two on the bottom here, because in the industry we often complain about the host of regulations. They keep increasing. But nonetheless, some of the executives said, how about some new regulations, like have it be against the law if your product doesn't last at least 5 years? Can you imagine? Or what if rules restrict the use of air transport? So it's a wild conversation. The other thing is the outcomes were a blend of personal and business statements. Now, maybe that's not the case in this room, but in our think tanks, usually people are in their 40s or up. So I'm not going to make any assumptions in this group, but I'm certainly in that category. So look at these. One executive, a senior VP of operations at an OEM, a very respectable OEM, he's a great guy. He said, my grown kids tell me, what kind of talent does it take to outsource to another country? They said, we don't have those jobs here. And so that's influencing his decisions. This was a team from Google, this team, Google X, they're committed to sourcing everything in the United States. And when this pretty young team was faced with the fact that a certain cardboard piece they'd have to source from China, they said, no, we won't. They said, there's paper and there's water in this country, we're going to source it here. And social media, tech companies should ask what kids want for the future if we're looking ahead 10 years. So there's a commitment to blend our personal ethics with what we do on the job every day. And what was really cool is here we are in the tech industry. What are many of the solutions that the tech executives came up with? Technology. So take a look at some of these. Looking at alternative power sources, conversion of nanomaterials, alternatives to electron sources. You'll see some outrageous things like biological processes, which may not be outrageous in 30 years. Looking at 3D manufacturing as a solution for regional manufacturing around the world. So what I'd like to share with you are some of the insights that the executives came up with from the Silicon Valley think tank for the 5 issues they tackled. And then we, as a group, are going to tackle 1 issue out of 3 others that are not these 5, okay? So this will give you a taste of where we're going. The first one we debated was, how do you reduce costs and improve efficiencies without compromising our values or increasing shareholder, and while increasing shareholder value, decreasing shareholder risk? So these were some of the BHAGs, the big, hairy, audacious goals that they came up with. So virtualizing products to the nth degree, to where maybe we only need our smartphones. Can that possibly be? Having virtual organizations. You and I are used to working for companies as employees. But what if, they said, instead everyone worked for themselves, everyone. And when there's a new product, a new project, a new initiative at the organization, you pull together people who are expert at that. We also talked about eliminating X. So I know I'm not the only one here who remembers the 1992 Montreal Protocol. What were we eliminating at that point? I know I'm not the only one. Yes, thank you, CFCs. So ozone depleting chemicals, right? So did we do it? We did, yeah. We went from aqueous to, we went from solvent cleaning to aqueous. We went to no clean in the case like of Celestica and some others. So the executive said it's time to make a new list of X, where X is no longer the CFCs necessarily, but what about gold? What about tantalum? What about some other challenging substances? So the next one was regional manufacturing. We had a fantastic debate about, is it better to manufacture far away from the customer as responsibly and economically as possible, or is it better to manufacture regionally? We talked about the the EMS versus ODM debate. What about our fear of IP theft? We talked about that. What can the OEM do? What can the EMS do when their margins are being squeezed out by some of the ODMs and some of the larger EMSs? We talked about solutions, amazing solutions to that. This one was one of my favorites, where, since 1987, we've been talking about that EMS companies should be partners, right? Does anyone get tired of that? Yeah, okay. So we do, because after a while, what does the word partner mean? But this idea is a true partnership. This is where the OEM and the EMS get together and align on certain product initiatives, where they're sharing risk, sharing design, sharing profit, and sharing distribution. So there's a whole host of ideas that are coming out of these. Technology, you know you have to innovate or die in this industry. But what do you do if the technology that's coming makes your product and processes obsolete? How do you embrace technology that is going to usurp the very equipment you're selling, or the tools you just bought, or the solution you're proposing to your marketplace? So that's what we tackled. And finally, regulations or competition. See if this graph looks familiar to anyone in this room. You've seen these, yes? Pretty soon you say, well, where's my product? So we talked about how do you get ahead of regulations? Should it really be about competition? There are some great ideas of starting with the Malcolm Baldrige concept, but taking it to a whole new level where the values and the goals were aligned such that it was a competition. It was capitalism at its best, competing according to winning an award for the best, most efficient, most responsible products and supply chains. So that gives you a taste of it. There were certain parts of the think tanks that seem more actionable than others. So these are just some of the ones. I'll race through these that seem right. Eliminating X, virtual organizational model, forecasting how far can product virtualization go. So this is a scary thought, because all of you are in hardware, right? What if we eliminate 90% of the hardware that we now design, manufacture, and sell? Okay, so you get kind of nervous about this. But clearly, if you look rationally at the last 20 years, it's clear that this is the direction we're going. So consumers are saying, we don't want pockets full of stuff. We don't want to cram our briefcases, cars, offices, homes with more stuff. We just want to be able to have the capability we want to entertain, work, communicate, inspire, create, right? So one of the ideas that seems actionable is seeing how far can product virtualization go so that now today, those of us whose jobs are hardware-centric can make plans to either be amongst the remaining hardware or finding out how to deliver value without it necessarily being new hardware. So now it's your turn. And how are you doing? Most of you are making good progress on your meal, so this is good timing. What I'm going to do is explain the rules of the next section of this keynote experience. So the first thing we can do, which you can do as you're eating, is to vote. Remember I showed you the 10 topics at the beginning, and I just went through really fast the 5 topics that the Silicon Valley group went through. I chose 3 of the other 5 topics that you can see at the top of the slide. And what I'd like us to do is to take a show of hands vote and to vote on which topic we're going to tackle in the time that remains for us. Okay? So let me help you by saying, what are we going to do with it? Well, we're going to form teams of 4. So every table has 8. We're going to, after you finished, maybe during dessert, have you group in groups of 4. I'll explain the roles that you will have within your group and what you'll be doing. So you'll have a little bit of time in the bigger group and then in your smaller groups, and then, yes, presentations. So this is what's coming. Which of these 3 topics? The first one is, how do you get control of the supply chain when there's more and more counterfeits, when there's hazards for workers and the environment? How do you track where the minerals are coming from in the light of conflict minerals? How about in the light of REACH, where every 6 months there's a new couple of substances to worry about? What do you do when the products you're used to using are going to be obsoleted? The next one is disaster preparedness and recovery. Now, is this only for large companies? Small companies don't need to worry about this, right? No, every company needs to worry about this, right? If you're in business, you need to prepare for disaster and have a quick recovery. So that's the second one. And the statistics show that there's an increasing amount of natural disasters that are happening. And because of a global society, if there's a natural disaster or a political disruption or a shortage in one region, it affects the entire industry. And then the third one is supply constraints and price hikes. There's a finite amount of materials in our Earth that are not renewable. So when the materials are lower and lower, what happens to the prices? They go higher and higher. So we want to talk about that. Oil prices, rare earth shortages. What are you going to do to keep your business vibrant, delivering products, and within the price points you're aiming to when more and more parts are harder to get? Okay, so we'll have a democratic vote. So please raise your hand if you'd like this group to discuss supply chain control. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, who's 7? Okay, will you remember 7 for the top one? Okay. Who's going to vote for disaster preparedness and recovery as a topic to discuss? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay? And who wants to vote for dealing with the issue of supply constraints over time and how that affects your supply chain? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think we're disaster planning and recovery. Excellent. Yeah? All right, good, good, thank you. So here are the ground rules. When you break, actually from the beginning, when we even talk in the big group, what I'm asking you to do, if you would kindly, is to consider every idea expressed by other think tank members. We're all a think tank now for about 45 minutes. Let everyone have their say, so try not to monopolize in your group of 4. Say it once. You know, we don't have much time, so don't keep saying it again and again. If you agree, instead of repeating what you just heard, just say here, here, or I agree. And I want you to have a commitment to solution. I want your solutions to be things you can use tomorrow at work, or Friday, whenever you get back to the office, and to drive strategies for the next 10 plus years of your company and your career. So that duality of purpose is what you need to focus on. Okay, so in each group of 4, there's one volunteer who will be the scribe, who will take some notes as to some of the main points that are being delivered, and another volunteer who will be presenter. And that presenter will actually come up to the podium for just 2 minutes at the end to share what your solutions are. Told you were going to have to work. Now, if any of you, after this experience, would like to share your big ahas, or what you thought about the experience, or some new perspectives that you gained, let me know, because there will be an opportunity with 1 or 2 industry publications to have your insights captured on video in the next day or 2. So just let me know if that's what you would like to do. Okay, so here's the process. We're going to spend 5 minutes as a big group to identify at least 3 big, hairy, audacious goals around the topic of disaster, preparedness, and recovery. Then I'm going to capture those 3 BHAGs. Then you're going to have 15 minutes in your small groups, in your group of 4. So immediately when you're in your 4, one person says, I'll be note taker, one person says, I'll be presenter. Don't take much time with that. And come up with solutions to get to the BHAGs you think will truly be the solution. Okay, so here's 10 years out. What are we going to do now so that we achieve it? Then each presenter will come up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 presenters will come up. And then we'll wrap up. And we're going to aim high for the fix. Okay? and we're ready to go. So, who would like to volunteer the first idea for a big, hairy, audacious goal for solving the problem of disasters interrupting our supply chains? Making earthquakes illegal. Okay, yes. Okay. Yep, so I saw this happen in Taiwan. Who remembers the earthquake in Taiwan? Was it 99 or 2000? In the middle of the country, it was USI, the contract manufacturer. Their surface mount line shifted over 5 feet. So at the south tip of Taiwan, where the earthquake wasn't as strong, there was OSE, Orient Semiconductor Electronics. Half their business is contract manufacturing. They did that. They took over all of their production. So should we say team with competitor? Does that work? Okay, another one, please. Even hairier, even more audacious than that. Say it again. Invest in disaster prediction. Oh, better disaster prediction. Excellent, excellent. Okay, I like it. Okay, one more. Yes?
All responsibility of software has its problem embedded into a lot of software, crashing and everything. So we could lose a lot of backups and total disaster.
So it's not just the physical supply chain disaster, but the software side, just as important. So if that's the problem, what might the big, hairy, audacious goal be to get to such that it wouldn't be a problem? Backup to backup to backup, okay. All right. Does anyone want to run with that? What about the software side? Because we're all dependent on software.
I like the idea of backup to backup to backup to backup. I think
It's good that it has a limitation because backup the first thing was crummy, and backup something else is crummy, it just goes on.
It's just as corroded as what you're backing up from.
self-diagnosing.
Self-diagnosing backups. I like it. Does someone have another burning BHAG? Yeah.
Instead of giving up the competition, my big audacious goal would be to get the whole industry to work as independent, yet share learning by region or by question.
I like it. So it's like the first idea, but it's on an industry scale.
Much bigger scale.
Disaster in one region, another region takes over. Say it again.
One region gets busy,
Yeah.
the other region gets busy.
Okay, so even aside from disaster, it's about loading. I like it. I like it. Okay. Regional cooperative loading. All right, excellent. So here's the deal. When you're in your group of 4, if you have another BHAG that you think is better than any of these, you have our permission to go with it. Okay, so at this point, this table will, you gentlemen, if you don't mind, and I think you've got 8 here, yeah? So who's going to be your scribe, and who's going to be your presenter? Okay.